Hi, this is Lady Lex UK and this is a Dreams gadget tutorial. Today we are looking at the rotation sensor. So let's have a look at sensors and input. And there is our rotation sensor. Pop it down. It's a little arrow following a circle, a spot, following a dot. This is a sensor. So like the other gadgets that are called sensors, this is not a rotation gadget. This will not make things rotate. It will only tell you the data of that rotation. So it will sense whether or not something is rotating or not and give you data on its speed and acceleration and orientation. It's not specifically there to give you angle information. So the angle of rotation, although that information can be derived from this sensor, and I'll show you about that in a minute. Now, like all the sensors, there are three ways for you to determine the object that you're going to sense. And on the last page you have a wire. Now it's interesting that all of these sensors have exactly the same option, this wire that you attach to an object, but it has a completely different icon for every single one, which is bizarre. I don't know why they've done that. It seems very strange to me, because on the angle sensor, this particular gadget, which does exactly the same thing, was a pot plant, and this time it's a hand. So go figure. I've no idea. Right, so we've got a wire. We can link that to our object like that, and a gizmo will appear. This is the orientation of what the X, Y and Z axes are, and you can see these are the rotating sensors on our sensor. You probably don't want to move these, to be fair. This is the orientation, the default orientation of your scene, so changing it may affect the object in a very odd way. So unless you know what you're doing, I would suggest you just leave those alone and don't touch them, so that the orientation is what you expect it to be. So let's undo that wire. So like the other gadgets, you can always surface snap down to the object, or you can put it in a microchip and surface that to your object. So there's three ways. If you've seen my other sensor tutorials, then you'll have seen me do those. I don't need to do those again. Right, let's have a look at what data is being provided. Here is our rotation sensor. I've got it linked up to a lot of displayers so that we can see the numbers that it's providing. So on page 1 we've got velocity, and on page 2 we've got acceleration. Now I didn't explain this in the movement sensor tutorial, and perhaps it's a good idea if I do. Let me just let me turn that off. Right, okay, so let's imagine you have this object here. The velocity of this object as it moves, let's say it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's speeding up as it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Speeding up, getting faster and faster and faster. So the velocity of this object, the number it's going to provide you with, is 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then when it reaches 10, it's going to just travel at 10. 10 miles per hour, it's going to travel, and it's off. Okay? So it will stay at 10. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. The acceleration of this block, because we're going up in ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, is it speeding up but only in ones all the time? What this acceleration will show is 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, until it gets to the 10, and then it will show 0. Because it has no longer accelerated, it's reached its velocity and it's now showing 0, which is why you cannot use acceleration, which is this number on this gadget. You can't use this to determine whether an object is rotating or not, or in the case of the movement sensor, whether it's moving or not, because 0 is the same whether an object is stationary or moving at a constant speed. It will show exactly the same number. So you cannot use that to determine rotation on this particular object. That's not what it does. This will just determine the speed as it speeds up or slows down. Right, let's have a look at these numbers. There we go. I've got a rotator and I've put it on my block, so it's going to rotate at 180 degrees per second. Now, 180 degrees per second for this number, the angular velocity becomes 1.545. Now, I don't know the relationship between the 180 of that rotator and the 1.545. It's a shame they haven't used a similar mathematical number so that we can see that's 180 degrees per second. It's rotating at 180. That would have been nice, but it's not. I don't know the relationships between the two numbers, but that is the number you get. Now, the first number is the total velocity. So the speed in any axis, that is the speed, 1.54. That's how fast it's rotating. The top one, which is the x, so this object is revolving in the x axis. And if you look at that revolving circle there, you can see that is exactly what's happening. It's moving and the x-axis is moving towards us like that. There's a little bit of minus movement in the y and the z, but nothing to be concerned about. This is mostly moving in the x-axis. Now then, if I was to take this object and change its orientation like this, what would you expect to happen? Would you expect the numbers to be the same or different? They're the same. The reason they're the same is that this is still moving, this object is still moving towards us, it's still rotating on that x-axis, because if you notice, as I moved my object, the gizmo itself, whoa, might help if I grab it and not the wire. No, I've grabbed the wrong thing. Hang on, there we go. You notice the gizmos do not move their orientation even though I'm moving the object. This is an important distinction. This object is rotating in the x-axis of the scene. Now, if you want it to move in the x-axis of the object, then you press local space. And now you see all the gizmos moving with the object. So the y-axis of the object is changing all the time. See, so it's now revolving exactly the same, but this time you see these numbers are completely different. This number has stayed the same because the speed is not altered, but the speed on these different axes, and you could use these speeds to determine which direction that the object is moving in, are different because we've changed the orientation of the object. And I can move this around like this. So now it's moving 1.2 in the x-axis. It's now moving more on the z-axis. There we go. So that's what the local space button does. Otherwise, it's just going to do it to the scene and in orientated to the scene. Right, at the bottom, I've moved this around so we now can't see the rotator. There we go. Right, this one here is relative to object. So if I was to link this is I click on it and this wire comes out, which is not really a wire, it's a dotted line. It's like the emitter. And you stick it on your object like so. This is now going to give us data in relation to the other object. Now at the moment it's exactly the same as it was before you did anything. It's not doing anything. It's exactly the same. There is no change. This is showing us 1.545, 2721. However, if I was to take a rotator and pop it on our block, now our block is now moving at the same speed as this one. And as a result, our result is 0 because they are both rotating in the same direction at the same speed. So the differences are 0. If I was to change the speed, I'm going to change this to 260. Okay, now go again. Now we have a difference, 0.685. So this block is moving 0.685. This block is moving 0.685 faster than this block. That's what it's saying. Because the numbers for a 260, the speed is 228, and this one was 1545. You take one from the other and you get 0.685. So that's the difference between the two. So this one's moving faster than this one, and by that amount. So you can determine how much faster one object is moving as compared to another object. And also different orientations on each of these as well. Now, like I say, these sensors are providing you with very straightforward information, but how you use that information is quite an advanced skill. All of these physics-based things that it's giving you, all this data it's giving you, is pretty simple, but it's difficult. It's going to be used in advanced physics. So for most of you, you'll never need to play about with these sensors at all. You're just going to do straightforward things, and these sensors probably would never get used by you. But people that want to do advanced physics and have lots of mechanical things and things moving around, and they need to know speeds, relative speeds, and things like that. If you're making some sort of space shooter that's complicated, and you've got AI and everything, you need to know relative speeds between objects and things, then this is the sort of thing that you would need to use, this and the other sensors. But for most of you, who are not going to go into advanced physics, and I can't say that I'm ever going to, then this data is interesting, but possibly not particularly practical. Again, we've got the orientation on this page. You need a splitter for that information. This is the orientation of the object, and it gives you 3 numbers, and you can use that to determine which way this is orientated and which way it's rotating in. But like I say, you can use these numbers too. Although this is providing you with speed, you can use these to determine which direction things are rotating in as well. So there you go. I'm not going to build anything practical with this because I couldn't really think of anything. So there you go. That was the rotation sensor. That's what it does. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.